Picture this. 2 warehouse jobs, same pay, same shift, same building. One fills in 3 days, and people actually show up. The other one? Tons of clicks, tons of applications, and half the new hires vanish before day 2. What changed? Not the job post.
Yeah, and if you've ever stared at the schedule thinking, where did everybody go? This one is for you. Today, we're not talking theory. We're taking one typical warehouse posting, X-raying it line by line, and rebuilding it so the right people say yes and actually show up.
Welcome to workersdotcom Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. I'm Jennifer, Personnel Manager and longtime industrial staffing nerd in the best possible way.
And I'm Sam, Staffing Manager and your fellow nerd. We spend our days in manufacturing plants, warehouses, light industrial sites. And we've both seen how one vague sentence in a job post can turn into a no-show or a quick quit a week later.
Our goal today is super practical. By the end of this episode, if you write job posts, you'll have a simple checklist you can run through in under 10 minutes. And if you're a job seeker, you'll know exactly how to read between the lines before you ever say yes to a shift.
And just to match your expectations here, this is about real frontline work. Warehouse, light industrial, manufacturing, skilled trade support. We're talking straight floor-level language, not HR buzzwords.
So, let's start with that hook story and why 2 nearly identical warehouse jobs can have totally different outcomes just because of the posting.
All right. Imagine Job A and Job B. Same building, same supervisor, both picking and packing in a distribution center. Job A has a super polished, very generic posting. Competitive pay, flexible schedule, fast-paced environment, opportunities for growth. It sounds nice. It also sounds like 100 other postings.
Job B describes the same role, but the post says something like, you'll be on your feet your entire shift, moving around a large warehouse, lifting up to 50 pounds regularly, and working at a steady, fast, but safe pace. Schedule is Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., plus 2 Saturdays a month during busy season. Pay is $18 an hour, plus a $1 shift premium for nights.
Now here's what happens. Job A gets flooded with applicants. People looking for days, people who can't lift 30 pounds, people who hate overtime, people who love overtime. They all see what they want to see. Then, once they're in orientation or on day 1, the reality hits. And surprise, that's where you get no-shows and quick exits.
Job B, on the other hand, probably gets fewer applicants, but the ones who apply know what they're signing up for. They're okay with evenings. They're okay being on their feet. They're okay with the pace. So fewer surprises, fewer people ghosting after lunch on day 1.
And that's really the heartbeat of today's episode. When your post is vague, people fill in the blanks with their own story. When it's clear, you and your candidates are reading the same story from the start.
Which brings us right into the core problem we see over and over again. Job posts that are written for systems, not humans.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Because nobody is waking up in the morning thinking, I can't wait to scroll through a perfectly compliant but totally unreadable HR template today.
So many industrial postings start life in an ATS or HRIS. They're built to check boxes, EEO statements, required language, internal codes. None of that is bad. But what happens is the actual meat, duties, schedule, pay, physical demands, gets buried under 3 paragraphs of corporate fluff.
And then we layer in all the vague phrases. Flexible schedule, which might mean anything from pick any shift you want to we'll change your schedule every week. Fast-paced environment. Is that busy but organized or chaotic with constant mandatory overtime? Competitive pay. Competitive compared to what?
From the employer side, I get it. There's a fear of scaring people away or a worry about promising the wrong thing. So the instinct is to sand off all the edges, keep it broad, keep it safe. But in practice, that softens the reality so much that the wrong people say yes and the right people scroll right past because they can't tell if it fits their life.
And from the worker's side, if you're trying to pick between 3 warehouse jobs on your phone on your lunch break, you don't have time to decode corporate speak. You want to know, what am I doing all day? When am I working? What am I getting paid? And is there anything that's going to surprise me on day 1?
So, let's move from concepts into something concrete. We're going to walk through a typical flawed posting, line by line, and I'll call out where the landmines are from a worker's perspective. Then we'll rebuild it together.
All right, here's our fictional but very realistic warehouse associate posting. I'll read a chunk, and then Jennifer, you can play X-ray tech and tell us what's really going on. Warehouse associate. Competitive pay. Fast-paced, team-oriented environment. Responsibilities include general warehouse duties as assigned. Must be able to lift up to 50 pounds. Flexible schedule required. Opportunities for advancement.
Okay, where do we start? Let's break it into 3 big sections that matter most on the floor: duties, schedule, and pay. And then we'll touch on the physical reality. On duties, we've got responsibilities include general warehouse duties as assigned. From a worker's point of view, that could mean anything: picking tiny light items or slinging 60-pound boxes all day. It could be driving a forklift or never seeing a forklift. It tells you nothing about pace, tools, or how repetitive the work is.
And general as assigned is one of those phrases that sounds harmless but makes people nervous. It can feel like we'll plug you into whatever we feel like without warning. That's where people start thinking, I'll just see how it is and decide if I stay, which is not what employers want.
Exactly. Then the schedule part, flexible schedule required. This is a huge no-show trigger. Flexible for who? For the company? For the worker? Are we talking rotating shifts, on call, weekends, swing shift? If I'm a parent or I work a second job, I'm guessing and hoping instead of planning.
I've seen so many situations where flexible really meant be prepared for overtime at the last minute and shift changes with short notice. And you can actually be honest about that in the posting and still get strong candidates, as long as you're clear and they can plan for it.
Then we've got pay, competitive pay. This one drives both sides a little crazy. Workers are trying to budget their rent and gas. Employers are worried about internal ranges and approvals. But when you hide the number, people assume the worst, or they click away to the posting that actually lists the wage.
And on the physical side, it says, must be able to lift up to 50 pounds. That's a start, but up to can be misleading. Is it 1 box a day or every 5 minutes? Do I lift it alone or with equipment? Am I on concrete all day? Is it hot, cold? None of that shows up here.
So if I'm a worker scanning this on my phone, what do I know, really? I know it's a warehouse, it might be heavy, and my schedule might be all over the place. I do not know what my day actually feels like or how this job fits into my life. That's where mismatches and early quits come from.
All right, let's flip the script. For employers and staffing pros, how do we rewrite this in plain language without making it a novel or creating compliance headaches?
Good news. You usually don't have to make it longer. You just swap fluff for specifics. Let's rebuild the same posting, and I'll call out what we're changing and why. Here's a clearer version. Warehouse order picker / packer. Pay $18 to $19 per hour, depending on shift, plus overtime after 40 hours. Typical schedule, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., plus 2 Saturdays a month during busy season with advance notice.
See how we led with the job title, pay, and schedule.
That's not an accident. That's what most people care about first. If it doesn't fit their life, they can bow out early, and that's actually a win for both sides.
Then for duties, we might say, what you'll do. Pick and pack orders using handheld scanners. You'll be on your feet your entire shift, walking, reaching, and lifting boxes that weigh 10 to 50 pounds. Most lifting is done by hand from waist to shoulder height. You'll work on a small team with a lead who's on the floor with you.
That gives such a better mental picture. I can imagine myself holding the scanner, grabbing boxes, following a lead. And it also quietly answers questions about supervision and structure. This isn't being thrown on your own with no support.
Exactly. And notice we didn't say fast-paced this time. Instead of the buzzword, we could add one specific sentence, like, you'll hit daily pick goals, but we train you first, and safety comes before speed. That tells you there is a pace, there are numbers, but it's not chaos.
On the schedule, instead of flexible schedule required, we spelled out the main shift and the Saturday expectation. You could add, some voluntary overtime is available during peak weeks. If overtime is mandatory, say that clearly. It's better for someone to opt out up front than to walk off the job after their second surprise 12-hour shift.
And for pay, even if you can't publish the exact number for some reason, give a range and the structure. For example, pay starts at $18 per hour, with a $1 shift premium for evenings and nights. Performance and attendance reviews happen at 90 days. That's still compliant and gives people real information.
Let's talk to employers who might be nervous right now, thinking, if I'm that specific, I'll scare everyone off. In our experience, you actually scare off the wrong people, which is what you want. The people who stay interested are the ones whose lives and bodies match the reality you just described.
And you don't have to rewrite from scratch every time. Create one strong master template per role. Picker-packer, forklift, machine operator. And then tweak the small details like shift or exact pay. That's how you make this sustainable when you're busy.
All right, we've been talking from the hiring side. Let's flip the lens now. If you're a job seeker, how do you X-ray any posting you see, whether it's clear or still vague, and protect yourself from surprises?
I like to keep this simple. 3 sections to study every time: duties, schedule, and pay. Same 3 we've been talking about. And for each one, you've got a couple of questions to either answer from the post or ask your recruiter before you say yes. On duties, ask yourself, can I picture what I'm doing hour by hour? If the posting just says general warehouse duties, that's a sign to ask more. You might say to your recruiter, will I be mainly picking, packing, operating equipment, or loading trucks? How heavy are the items, and how often am I lifting them?
And if you don't get a clear answer, that's data too. You're allowed to say, I'd like something with more predictable tasks or lighter lifting. A good recruiter will work with that instead of pushing you into a bad fit.
On schedule, look for exacts. If the posting has a specific shift and days, great. If it only says flexible or must be available any shift, ask, what is the usual shift I'll be scheduled on? How often do shifts change? Is overtime voluntary or mandatory? And how much should I expect in a typical week?
And then there's pay. If the posting lists a range, say $18 to $20 per hour, ask, what would make me start at 20 instead of 18? Is that based on experience, shift, or something else? If it just says competitive pay, it's completely fair to ask for the specific hourly rate before you lock in a start date.
One more X-ray tip for job seekers. Look for clues about stability. Phrases like seasonal peak work or short-term project aren't bad. They just tell you this is a stepping stone job, not a long-term home. If you want stability, ask, is there a path to temp to hire or full-time? And what does that usually look like here?
And remember, asking these questions doesn't make you difficult. It makes you smart. Good employers and good staffing agencies appreciate workers who are honest about what they can and can't do. That's how we avoid that first-week churn nobody likes.
All right, we've covered a lot. Let's land this with some clear action steps. A quick checklist if you write posts, and a quick reflection list if you're applying.
For employers and staffing pros, here's your 5-point rewrite checklist for the next job you post. 1. Lead with pay and schedule. Put the hourly range and typical shift right near the top, not buried at the bottom.
2. Replace buzzwords with specifics. Instead of fast-paced, say how goals work. Instead of flexible schedule, explain the real shift pattern and overtime expectations.
3. Describe the physical reality. On your feet all shift? Temperature in the warehouse? Typical lifting and how often? Put in 1 or 2 honest sentences so people can self-select in or out.
4. Clarify supervision and support. Mention if there's a lead on the floor, if there's training before you're on your own, if it's a small team or a big one. That calms a lot of first-day nerves.
And 5. Build one strong template per role. Don't reinvent the wheel for every requisition. Invest 20 or 30 minutes once, save yourself a lot of no-shows later.
For job seekers, your reflection list is just as simple. 1. Can I picture myself doing the work based on what's written? 2. Does the schedule fit my life if I'm honest about childcare, transportation, and sleep? 3. Do I know enough about pay to feel comfortable, or do I need one more conversation before I say yes?
If you run through those questions on both sides, you'll see fewer surprises, fewer quick quits, and a lot more people who show up and stay.
Thanks for spending a few minutes with us today on workersdotcom Staffing Pulse. Clear job posts build better teams and better careers. Let's dive in again next time with another frontline staffing topic.
Until next time, stay safe, stay clear, and keep building roles that people are excited to show up for.